Sandy Says Read, and welcome to the channel. You guys, this evening we are going to do a review and discussion of The Christmas Train by David Baldacci. Get that up there where you can see how pretty that cover is. Okay, before we start, I do want to remind you guys that you can download your Sandy Says Read Bingo Baker card. You can grab that for yourself. I'll put a link to the Bingo Baker card generator in the drop-down box below so you can generate your own little card. This is full of phrases that I typically say when we're doing these reviews. You don't get any prizes for this. If you're new to the channel, there are no prizes. We can't afford prizes here, but you do get a little dopamine rush each time I say one of these phrases, and you get to check it off of the box on your Sandy Says Read bingo card. All right, enough of that. Yeah, shall we dive in? You guys, if you're new to the channel, you might as well know that I have a dead printer in my house. It does not work. I cannot print out my notes. So I have put the notes to this video in a Word document that I'm going to be reading from the screen. I apologize in advance for how crazy it's going to look, but here we go. If I have to like break this up with some weird editing splices and stuff, it's because I'm trying not to look like I'm just reading stuff off the screen at you guys. Okay, so let me now probably put in a weird editing splice while I bring that document up. I have my Christmas Train video notes here on the screen so I can show you guys all the good things. We are going to do the Oreo cookie experience for you guys with this book. And let me tell you why. I did not enjoy the book. I'm just flat out going to say it. I'm being honest with you guys. This is an honest review. I didn't love this book. But here at Sandy Says Read, we can always find something good in a book. So we're going to Oreo cookie that noise and tell you good stuff. Then we're going to do the whole review with like good and bad, the fluffy filling in between. And then we're going to tell you some more good stuff at the end. Okay? Yeah. All right. So let's start with the specs. Okay. What are the specs? Hang on. The specs are, okay, the title is The Christmas Train. It is by David Baldacci. The publisher is Grand Central Publishing, a division of Hachette Book Group. And this was published in 2013. It is 258 pages. It's written in third-person point of view, past tense. Thank goodness. All right. And this particular version, it includes two other stories. We have Waiting for Santa, which is a 4-page short story. Thank you guys. I've got to tell you that story, it's mostly, it's almost sad. Okay. But it's a short story that does a lot of telling, and I'm going to spoil it for you. Okay. I mean, this thing was published in, what did I say? 2013. So by now people should have read it if they were going to read it. The short story, it ends with finding out that the little girl this guy has been talking to was a ghost. And every writer's workshop that I've been involved in for like the past, okay, my neighbors are shooting each other, for like the past year or 2 years, they tell us don't have a ghost be who's talking to your character, or don't have, you know, the main character figure out that someone is a ghost. Don't do that. And yet here it was. It worked. I mean, the story kind of broadcast, you kind of figured out that, hey, he's probably talking to a child ghost and not a real person. Okay, let's move on. What the other title that's at the back of this is called Bullseye, and it goes from pages 269 to 337. That one is sort of a bank robbery. I think it's supposed to be a thriller novella. It's a very short novella. The main character in that one is named Oliver Stone. So I spent the whole novella going, wait, Oliver Stone? Really? Maybe they're shooting off fireworks. Maybe it's not guns. Can you guys hear that in the background? The neighbors shooting each other? Yeah. I live in a great neighborhood. Okay, let's get back to The Christmas Train. Let me read the back cover for you, which is actually the inside front flap. The Christmas Train. Disillusioned journalist Tom Langdon must get from Washington, D.C. to L.A. in time for Christmas. Forced to travel by train, he begins a journey of rude awakenings, thrilling adventures, and holiday magic. He has no idea that the locomotives pulling him across America will actually take him into the rugged terrain of his own heart as he rediscovers people's essential goodness and some very special he believed he had lost. Oh, and someone very special he believed he had lost. David Baldacci's The Christmas Train is filled with memorable characters who have packed their bags with as much wisdom as mischief, and shows how we do get second chances to fulfill our deepest hopes and dreams, especially during this season of miracles. You guys, did I write this down? Yeah, okay. We'll talk about the theme in just a second here, but I'm going to tell you guys, if this is a second chances romance novel, then it is also a horror novel. If we're calling this a second chances romance, then I'm saying it is a psychological horror. And I'll tell you why I think that as we go through this review. All right, so the theme might be summed up on page 122. So let's go to page 122. Oh yeah, where we talk about bullet trains. Hold, please. On page 122, we have a character. His name is Herrick Higgins, and he's talking to Tom. And Herrick, he used to work for Amtrak, and I'm not real sure why he's on the train. Again, he likes being on the trains. I'm so sorry about the bullets in the background. I think they're fireworks. And he is saying, that's why trains are so popular at Christmas. People get on to meet their country over the holidays. I think that's our theme for the book. It's mentioned throughout the book many, many, many times that, you know, trains are special. There's just something about a train. Many characters say there's just something about a train. And this concept of the train being this like romantic pastime, yeah, that just keeps coming up and coming up. So I think this is the theme, that, you know, trains are popular at Christmas, and trains are a way to get back to seeing your country and going to visit family and just being with people. Okay, I think that's our theme. And what's interesting is right after we get that thematic statement, you know, Herrick Higgins is talking about, you know, the way that the train can be time consuming, but that's good, like taking your time and being on the train. And I think Tom was talking about, you know, the bullet trains, you know, being a faster mode of transportation. And I wrote that this is all a nice sentiment, but the bullet trains are going to kill this point. You know, the bullet trains getting from one point to the next too quickly is going to take away that nostalgia and romance of it. And what a shame that will be. Okay. All right. So let's see where my notes say here. We're gonna Oreo cookie this thing. All right. So here's a few good things. Let's say a few good things about this. Yes, it is a gorgeous cover. This right here is the promise of a lovely Christmas concept. There's no train, but that's okay. It's lovely. It's beautiful. The red and the green on this Christmassy background. I mean, this is a gorgeous cover. It's one of the reasons I picked this book up. It's just beautiful. All right. Then let's see. Third person point of view, past tense. You know, that's my speed. That's my jam. I'm happy about that. The two parts are, yes, there are basically two sections in the book, and they're clearly delineated with the train names, destinations, and some artwork. So let's look at that. Let's go to page 8. Hold, please. Let me get there. Yeah, because I want you to see. Okay, so the Capital Limited is the first train that he's on. And I can't tell if that's centered on the screen for you guys or not, because I've got it blocked with my notes. But there's our first one, the Capital Limited. It's going from Washington, D.C. to Chicago. That's the first train he gets on. And then page 143. Hold, please. All right. And this is the Southwest Chief. And this one, that's the next one. See the pretty artwork on there. And it's going from Chicago to Los Angeles. That's our second train. All right. Was that it? Okay, guys, now we got to dive into this review and discussion. Let's talk about our characters, because as I talk about the characters, we'll kind of get some of these plot points and storyline going on. Basically, what's happening in the story is Tom Langdon, our main character. He is going across country to see his current girlfriend, Lelia, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Lelia Gibson. Okay, she is a voice actress. She lives out in LA, and she and Tom are going to go skiing for Christmas. So he's got to get from Washington, D.C. out to LA. He's taking the train because he has been put on a no-fly list. He like blew up during the TSA thing at some point. It's explained briefly at the beginning. He has a temper, I guess. So he got mad and blew up at the TSA guy. And so he's been put on a no-fly list. So he has to take the train all the way across the country to get to his girlfriend's house to go on this ski trip for Christmas. It's a thing. It's what's got to happen. Okay, so that's him in a nutshell. Now, here's the thing. Another character on the train is Eleanor Carter. She's our female lead, and she is a writer for a producer who's also on board the train. The producer, if I got him on this list here, Max Powers. He's a producer. He's got like a bunch of money and power, hence the last name Powers, I'm sure. He is on board the train with Eleanor and with his assistant, Cristobal. I'm sure it's supposed to be pronounced Cristobal, but there you go. Cristobal, Max's assistant, is kind of this whiny little fellow, probably in his 20s, right? I picture him as a beta male. Anyway, these three are on board to get some like B-roll and ideas and some script notes to write a screenplay about a train, being on a train. Everything centers around trains and how awesome and great trains are. This whole book is about how awesome and great trains are. There's just something about a train. Okay, so Tom, when he figures out that Eleanor is on this train, he is flabbergasted by this because Tom and Eleanor used to date. In fact, they used to live together. In fact, he used to want to ask Eleanor to marry him. Surprise! He wanted to marry her and spend the rest of his life with her. She's the one who got away. So guess what's happening? Yeah, this is our love interest. This is the meet cute that happens between those two on the train. And Eleanor is like, oh, you're on the train. Great. She wants nothing to do with him. So he has to like win her over while he's on the train. Okay, so there's that romance happening. We'll talk about it. Okay, other characters on board the train. We have Regina. She's the porter on the first train, the Cap. Roxanne, she's Regina's mom, and she's the porter on the Chief, the second train. We have Agnes Jo. This character, I was just befuddled by this character. Her name is Agnes Jo. She's an older passenger. She's kind of stocky and pushy and rude and not really terribly nice. The first time we meet her, she literally pushes Tom, literally bumps him. His name is Tom, right? I keep wanting to call him Todd. Tom. She literally bumps him out of the way and he falls flat on his butt down some stairs. He's like sprawled out on his back at the base of these stairs because this older woman has pushed him, and he's stunned by this, of course, as was the reader. And he just has to like get up and look around to see if anyone noticed this. And this woman is abrasive like that toward him a lot during the book. And she's on both trains. She's going all the way to LA too. I mean, and she's just not a nice gal. It's kind of weird. Every once in a while, she will have a moment where you think maybe she's nice. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. There's a duplicity to her for a reason, and we'll get to that. But yeah, she was just an odd character. Okay, we mentioned Max Powers. He's the producer who's got a lot of money that he throws around. Cristobal, his assistant, who whines a lot. Misty. There's a gal named Misty who is a fortune teller, and she basically shacks up with Max. Every chance she gets, they become an item as they're going across the country. There's a fellow named Father Kelly, whom we think is a priest. And he, in fact, performs a wedding. Let's go to page 220. I've got a note here to go to page 220. Hold, please, while I get there. Okay. During the book, when we speak with Father Kelly, his faith is not shaken, but his faith has not been practiced as of late. He has not been like in the pulpit, so to speak, for many years, for a decade or so, is what he has told these people. And in chapter 30, we have a paragraph about the dining car and hungry passengers and diapers and milk starting to run low. And then Father Kelly finally found the courage to hold a prayer service in the lounge car, and it was well attended by all faiths and denominations, even a few agnostics who were looking for solace. The priest was a little rusty and stumbled at times, but his effort was sincere, and people came up to him afterward and thanked him for lifting their spirits. And I wrote some stuff in the margin that I'm not going to read verbatim because it's not very kind. But basically, this fellow just suddenly had this drop off of his arc. Just all of a sudden, he's okay with leading a prayer service, and then in a minute here he's going to lead a wet. All of a sudden, here it was. All these other characters we get like build up and long, extended, protracted arcs. But Father Kelly, no, here we go. Hey, he finally found the courage to hold a prayer service. Surprise. It was just weird. It was odd. But there's a reason why his stuff is odd. We're going to get to that in a minute. Okay, because I'm spoiling everything for you. Okay, there's no secrets here. I'm not hiding anything. We're going to tell you why. All right, Steve and Julie. I mentioned there was a wedding performed, that Father Kelly performs a wedding for Steve and Julie. They're a young couple about to get married on the train. Steve and Julie have parents who do not want them to marry each other, supposedly. All right, then we have Herrick Higgins. We just mentioned Mr. Higgins a moment ago, waxing philosophical about the trains. He's a guy who used to work for Amtrak. I'm not real sure why he still likes to ride the rails, okay? And he provides excellent tension about the weather, okay? They're about to get some severe weather on the second train that is going to literally block them in. The train is going to be stopped by an avalanche. And Herrick Higgins is like watching out the windows. He's watching the skies. He's seeing them getting gray and a certain type of snowy weather is coming. And he's commenting on this. He is providing excellent tension about the weather that's coming. Excellent. That it's so much. I'm so sorry about the fireworks. There's so much good tension building with Mr. Higgins. Okay. We don't need the authorial intrusion that we get with these like weather reports and weird, just random out of the blue commentary that we get from the author telling us that the weather looks bad. I mean, just from time to time, we get these weather reports out of Chicago, out of other places, and we don't need that. That was overkill. I felt that was overkill because Herrick did such a good job. Mr. Higgins did that for us. And I felt like I wanted to call up David Baldacci's editor and tell him, hey, why did you take that away from Mr. Higgins? Why did you diminish his role? You didn't need to. Just let him be strong. Let him. Shall we move on? I'll stop complaining about that. Okay. Then let's see. What else do we have? We have a lawyer named Merriweather. We have a lawyer named Merriweather that these people prank with a snake on board the train. Let's go to page 129. This was just so bizarre. Page 129. Okay. Mr. Merriweather is obnoxious. He's a rude, obnoxious, like loudmouth. He threatens people with lawsuits because he can. And he sleeps in the nude, apparently. Like they notice through like a curtain in his compartment that he sleeps in the nude. So when they discover that someone has a pet snake that has gotten out of its containment on board the train, they take this pet snake and they like let it go in his compartment. Yeah, these are grown adults. They let it go, and the porter, Regina, is in on this. They let it go in his compartment so that it frightens him, and he comes running out of his compartment, naked as a jaybird. All right, so let's see. Okay, so here's Merriweather. There's a thing, a snake, enormous, in my room, yelled Merriweather. He grabbed Tom's sleeve. I'll show you. It's terrible. It almost killed me. A snake on the train, said Tom skeptically. Regina came running up. Now what's going on? And so they're talking to Merriweather, making him think that he's insane, gaslighting him, basically. And then Eleanor is there because she's in on this prank. And because Tom is a reporter and a journalist, he's taking notes. And Tom pulled out a notepad and pen. Is that Merriweather just like it sounds? And can I get the exact name of your law firm? There was a snake in my room, wailed Merriweather. I'm no streaker. I'm not a pervert. Streaker and pervert. Those were exactly the words I was looking for, said Tom as he wrote furiously. I'll show you. I'll show you. Merriweather pulled them down the hallway to his compartment. As it turned out, his completely empty compartment. Merriweather yelled, It was here, I swear. At least I think it was. Were you sleeping? Asked Eleanor. Well, yes, and then the light woke me up. Maybe you left the light on, fell asleep, and you just dreamed about a snake. Did you ever think of that? Said Eleanor. Okay, and this goes on for a little bit. They basically blackmail this guy, the lawyer, to not be mean to people anymore, to not threaten to sue anyone anymore, to stop worrying about things that have been stolen from his compartment anymore. Okay, they basically blackmail him with this snake and streaking incident. These are adults. Yeah, it was just all of my points are being punctuated by firecrackers. Okay, so that's what's going on. I've written here in my notes, a lot of these characters were just unrealistic, some of the things they get into, and unlikable. They just were. Agnes Joe bumping into Tom, just weirdly unlikable. The lawyer being a jerk to everyone, just unlikable. Max throwing money around was just a little bit unlikable. Crystal Ball whining all the time. Roxanne taking over this boys choir that comes aboard and taking over like every interaction, like she owns the place. It was just, they just were unlikable to me. I sound very negative. I'm so sorry. Oh God. Okay, good. Let's go to page 2. Page 2. Let's talk about Tom and Lelia. Oh, okay. So this I found funny and humorous. Hopefully you will too. This is not negative. This is just funny. Tom was a newsman, she said, so at least he occasionally dealt with the truth. And in the margin, I wrote, that didn't age well. So I thought it's humorous. Okay, I'm going to stop being negative. Okay, we're going to stop being negative about these characters. I've got some more notes there. It sounds too negative. You guys, the point is, I found a lot of the characters to be very similar in the way they were painted, and the way they were painted wasn't awesome to me. Okay, I didn't love Tom or Eleanor. I didn't root for them. I didn't care if they got back together. In fact, I found both of them to be immature in the way they interacted with one another, immature in the way they interacted with other characters. And I'm not going to give you all these examples I've got written down because it just feels like I'm being very negative. That's my experience with it. Your results may vary. That's just how I felt. As Daniel Jackson would say, that's just how I feel about it. Okay, let me give you some writing style examples. As we do here on this channel, I'll read a little passage for you to give you a flavor of the author's writing style. On page 15 is our first one, where we're getting introduced to some characters. I think this is in the terminal before they get on the train. Sitting across from the priest was a slender woman with very angular features, a geometric project honed from skin and bone. Tom couldn't really tell her age because she was wearing a long, multicolored scarf around her head, almost like a turban. She also wore wooden shoes the size of 30-pound dumbbells. Spread on the chair next to her were tarot cards, which she was studiously poring over. When anyone passed, she'd glance up with a look that seemed to say, I know all about you. It was a little unnerving, actually. Tom had had his palm read by an old fellow in the Virgin Islands once. He had promised Tom a long life filled with a passel of kids, a loving wife, and nothing but good times. Tom had often thought about hunting the liar down and getting his money back. He watched one elderly lady maneuvering around on a walker. She reminded him of his mother. After her stroke, she couldn't speak, so he had concocted a little system. He'd lay a photo of her and himself when he was a boy on his mother's chest, and she'd pick it up with her good hand. That meant things were okay, that she was still there. He'd never forget the time he laid the photo down and waited 8 hours for her to pick it up. She never did. She died the next day. A few minutes later, Tom and the other passengers all grabbed their bags and headed out. The mighty Capital Limited was calling his name. That is the kind of weird transitions and weird style that was going on through this whole book. Tom is reminiscing on different things from his past in ways that may or may not be integral to the story later. Okay, there is a point in the story where Tom pulls out a wedding ring to give to Eleanor. It's a romance, okay, guys, apparently. And I was stunned that he had this ring in his pocket. I couldn't believe he had this ring with him because the ring belonged to his mother. This right here, this little passage right here, where he had helped take care of his mom after her stroke. Okay, those few sentences are the only sentences I remember us getting about his relationship with his mother. Nothing in this book gave me the idea that he was so close to his mom that he would be carrying her ring in his pocket with him every day and onto a train to go across country to visit with a girlfriend that he did not have any intention of marrying. He and Lelia were not that close. In fact, when Lelia gets on this train, on the second train, when she gets on the Chief, he is stunned and surprised and amazed and horrified. He doesn't know what she's doing there. He doesn't know why she's on the train. And in fact, when she proposes to him, he is stunned and horrified and does not want to get married, doesn't want that entanglement, didn't think that their relationship had gone that far. So the fact that he's got this ring in his pocket is a contrivance. As Duran Duran would say, it's completely contrived. Okay. Are there any other writing styles that I need to know? I'm not going to drag this book that much. We're going to stop that. I'm just being picky, and I need to stop being picky. I'm so sorry. This sounds so negative. Oh my God. Okay. So there is a big climactic event that is pretty cool. I mentioned to you guys that Herrick Higgins has been watching the sky. He's seeing the snowy sky thing happening, and there's this tension building with this character because, yes, the train does get stuck by an avalanche. They're going through the Raton Pass, Raton. Maybe it's pronounced Raton. They're going through the Raton Pass. Going through this pass, they get stuck. They get stuck because of all the snow. It's too much snow. This avalanche comes down. They're stuck. And Tom decides, hey, look, I'm a pretty adventurous guy. I'm going to go get help. He's going to put on his snow skis and go get help. And everyone else on the train is like, oh, is that safe? And Eleanor is like, you prick, you jerk. How dare you risk your life? You've always been like this. This has always been your problem. You don't think of anyone else. You just go off risking your life. And I thought, wow, it seems like maybe he is thinking of other people to risk his life to bring back help. But this is Eleanor in a nutshell. She's kind of odd like that. It was weird. So he decides, you know what? Okay, Eleanor, you're right. Maybe I'm just going off to find help because I'm trying to be a hero. So I'll stay here. So he stays on the train, and they have like this Christmas thing. They do have a Christmas event, and everyone like opens little presents and shares the Christmas spirit together. And then they realize we are running out of gas. We're running out of electricity from the 3 engines that have been pushing this train. So we're all going to freeze to death, and that's not good. So someone does need to get on their skis and go for help. There's a ski lodge not too far, something not too far from where we're stuck. So someone could go get help, but it's dark and there's like blizzard conditions. And so it's going to be difficult. So Tom is like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go. I'm going to get the help we need. And Eleanor says, oh, you can't go alone. I must go with you. So she gets on her skis and they go off into the dark. And of course they get lost and they don't know where they are. And they have to end up spending the night almost freezing to death. And she's so cold, and he like puts his body over her to protect her from the elements, to try to save her life. And toward morning, some kid shows up and is like, hey, mister, what are you doing out here sleeping in the snow? And they're like 50 feet from this lodge. So they get help. Help comes to the train. Amtrak has come by then too. And so everyone is saved, and it's a Christmas miracle. And Tom and Eleanor decide we should be together because we've had this adventure together. Yeah. And because he has the ring in his pocket, he's able to propose. That is great. So they do have their happily ever after thing is happening. That is that's the romance of it. You guys, when I tell you how contrived that was and how Max set that all up, you're going to be horrified like I was. But let's wait till we get there, because there were a couple other things happening. There were some other plot lines going. It wasn't just that one plot line. There were other elements and jigsaw puzzle pieces coming together. I mean, David Baldacci did a very nice job of interweaving some other plot lines. Kudos. I'm giving him props for that. Okay, this is not all negative. There was a storyline of some thefts. There were thefts going on. Remember, I mentioned that the lawyer, Mr. Merriweather, was accusing people of stealing things, and he was going to sue people for stealing things. He was going to sue Regina because she wasn't protecting his compartment from people stealing things. Okay, things were going missing. There was a thief on board both trains. The thief got on the second train and was stealing stuff out of people's compartments. Tom lost a fabulous pen that Eleanor had given him back in the day. People were just losing important things expensive, important things, okay? And then one evening, all those things were returned. So this plot line, let's see, what page did that happen on? It all came back on page, 224. Hold, please. Let me get there. Page 224. I cannot find it. Hold on. Okay. It says here, one positive, if surprising, event had occurred. All the items that had been stolen on the Chief, and many of the items that had been taken during the trip on the Capital Limited, had been returned to their rightful owners. No one had seen anything, and no one could explain why the thief had experienced such a dramatic change of heart. Roxanne and Father Kelly simply put it down as a Christmas miracle. Okay, that's very nice and everything. But when you think back to the fact that Father Kelly had this sudden epiphany, this sudden desire to lead a prayer service, something's happening with him, right? He is having a nice arc. There was a nice arc happening for him, and that was very lovely too, okay? He is the thief. He's not really a priest. He never was. He was pretending to be a priest. So this wedding is problematic as well. He supposedly married these two kids, right? We're going to get to that in a second. Okay, so he has had this epiphany where he's leading a prayer service. He's basically figuring out that he shouldn't be a thief and he shouldn't be doing these bad things. He should be doing good things. He should be helping people. And Agnes Jo, surprise, is not Agnes Jo. And I forgot her real name, and I don't care to look it up and find it in here because I didn't care. But she is an agent for Amtrak. She is trying to figure out who's been stealing things on these Amtrak trains. And she figures out that it's Father Kelly. She figures it out that it's this guy, and they figure out his real name. And again, I don't care what it was, but she also figures out that he returned everything and he's turning over a new leaf and he's trying to be good. He just had this setback in his life and he's trying to be a good person. So she doesn't know if she should turn him in to Amtrak or not. And so she and Tom talk about it and they're like, well, maybe if he's trying to be a good guy, maybe instead of turning him in, you could help him with like some therapy and stuff. So they do. They decide, hey, let's get him some help instead. And I thought, it's kind of nice. It's kind of a nice ending for him. Instead of him going to jail, he's going to get help. And that was very nice. So yay. All right. Where are my notes? Okay, so the reveal of what Max put together for Tom and Eleanor to get back together is what makes this, in my estimation, a manipulative psychological horror novel. This is not a second chances romance. This is a horror novel if you read it from Eleanor's point of view. Yes, Eleanor is this kind of immature, bitchy gal, but you guys, I don't think she deserves what has happened to her. Let me tell you what has happened to her. Max, her boss, has set up everything that has happened here. Max, her boss, somehow figured out that Tom was going to be on this train, and he got her and Cristobal onto this train too. He changed their tickets, and he got in touch with Regina, and he's like, hey, You know, Tom is a pretty good journalist. If he figures out that something seems a little fishy, he's going to come to you and he's going to ask you about our booking these tickets. Make sure that he understands we got bumped onto this train. Make it look all innocent like, so he doesn't catch on to the fact that I arranged this. Max arranged this. Max arranged for Eleanor to be on that train. Max arranged for Julie and Steve, who are not really in love, to be on the train and to come up with this story. Max arranged for Misty, the psychic tarot card reading woman, to be on the train and to feed information to people and to like morph their stories and backgrounds for people. Max set all of this up so that Tom and Eleanor could be together, and so that Eleanor would fall back in love with Tom, and so Tom could propose. Max manipulated it all. Okay, Tom doesn't know this until toward the very end of this story. Tom is in like the communal showers, the larger showers, and he picks up someone's wallet. He's like, oh my gosh, I need to figure out whose wallet this is and give it back to them. He opens it up and it's Steve's wallet, and in it is his Screen Actors Guild card. So Steve is an actor. And Max is a producer. He puts these two together and he's like, geez, what's happened here? And he starts putting all these puzzle pieces together and he figures out Max has set this all up. Max set us up and all of this has been fake. And while he's figuring this out, Max is in a limo. They've gotten to LA. Everyone is safe. The train has come in and Max is in a limo with Lilia, who is in on it. Cristobal, who is, of course, in on it because he's Max's assistant, and Lilia and Cristobal are now an item. Max is in the limo with Julia and Steve, who have not really gotten married because it was a fake priest who didn't really marry them. He's in the car and they're talking about what they have done. Max says, good job, guys, said Max. You'll all be in my next picture. Who knows? Maybe it'll be about the train. Misty said, Max, when you told me what you'd done, I couldn't believe it. Well, sweetie, though I'd only known you a short time, I knew you could keep a secret for the right reasons. And we go on, we go on, we go on. Max beamed, you're a fine actress. And see what you gain from my little plan. Blah, blah, blah. We go on, we go on. Oh, let's see. And you did this all for Eleanor? Asked Misty. And she doesn't know about any of it? Max nodded. Not a thing. Eleanor is the daughter I never had. I'd do anything for her. As long as I've known her, she hasn't been truly happy. I knew there was something in her past. Now, she never told me his name, but I did some snooping, and I found out that Tom Langdon was the big loose end in her life. Her boss basically snooped around in her past, figured out who this guy was, and set this all up. Okay, go on. Okay, and then there was a rap on the window. Must be the luggage, said Max. He rolled the window down. Tom leaned in and looked at them all. Max said nervously, hey there, Tom. Just giving the newlyweds a ride to their honeymoon palace? I'm sure, said Tom. He handed Steve his wallet. You dropped it in the shower. Your driver's license and SAG card are in there. Figured you'd need them. Tom, said Max, I can explain. Tom held up a hand. I only have one thing to say to you. Max drew back. What's that? Thank you. Tom shook hands with Max and then looked around at everyone. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, he said. He walked away from the limo and found Eleanor, who was with their bags and watching him curiously. Who was in the limo, she asked. Tom turned and glanced back at the car pulling off. He looked back at Eleanor. Santa Claus, he answered. And there's a little bit more. Okay, basically, Tom figured out that Max has manipulated them. Tom figured out that Eleanor's boss has manipulated her and set her up, and he's okay with it. He's just going to go along with the lie to have his girl back. That, my friends, is a manipulative Christmas horror story. Yeah. David Baldacci's The Christmas Train is a psychological horror. Yeah, okay. That's what I think of that. Okay, so for our Oreo cookie ending, I'm going to tell you some good things about the book. Let's end on a good positive note. Some good things. The author gave Lilia and Cristobal matching superficial personalities, but put them together in the end. Okay, Neither one of them was awesome, but he put them together and gave them their little happily ever after, which I thought was very nice, very kind. What else is a good thing? The idea that Father Kelly got a second chance without like a felony conviction, I thought that was nice. So the second chances idea was happening with Father Kelly too. I liked that. I thought that was very nice. What else? The idea that Agnes Joe was going to reunite with her estranged daughter was nice. Agnes Joe, I forgot her real name, but she did comment at one point during the story that she wasn't close with her daughter anymore and she wished that she was. And at one point toward the end, she mentions to Tom that her daughter had called her, and I think it was because of the train being stuck and her daughter knew she was on that train. Her daughter called her and said, "Hey, are you okay? And hey, we'd like to get together after Christmas." So they're going to get together. They're going to have that little reunion. I thought that was very nice. Very nice. And finally, one last Oreo cookie ending point. The author, David, did reveal everything in the end. We did have a nice wrap up of everything at the end. Let's see. Even if that gave a creepy psychological horror vibe, there was a wrap up. Everything was tied in a nice Christmas bow. We weren't left hanging. There we go. All right, you guys. So now we have to chart this on the Christmas cheer chart. So let me grab the suddenly appearing Christmas cheer chart. Is our suddenly appearing Christmas cheer chart for 2024. We need to place the Christmas train somewhere on this chart. You guys, except for like this one scene where they had like Christmas present opening and they did talk about Jesus being the reason for the season. There was one scene where a fellow commented about, Christmas commercialism, and someone else talked about, no, Jesus is great. Except for that scene, there was no other reason for the season really discussed in the book. There was just the one. So we kind of forgot the manger an awful lot in this book. So we're gonna be down in this hemisphere along this axis. Now, the festiveness axis, along this festiveness axis, we really didn't have a ton of like light display from space either. I wouldn't say it was dry as a fruitcake. We did have some festiveness going on in the book. It wasn't a ton. So you guys, we're going to be in this quadrant, but kind of closer to the middle, maybe. I'm going to put it way over here. Way over here. Can you see that? Yes. Okay. I'm going to put our Christmas train over here. We forgot the baby in the manger mostly, and we didn't get overly festive. We're mostly right here. The Christmas train is right here. Despite this gorgeous Christmas cover, you guys, this is a pretty Christmas cover right here. Okay. Thumbs up, you guys, for a gorgeous Christmas cover. Thumbs up for psychological horror at Christmas time. And thank you so much for tuning in.